For example, if we take the case of France, which colonized Upper Volta, now Burkina Faso, if France faces difficulties, like the way it is provoking Russia and other countries, if war breaks out, it has the right to come and take young Burkinabés to go and defend it. That is part of the agreement. The third agreement is that, for example, if in the room where we are sitting, gold is found underground, or diamonds or oil, it's not for us, it's for them. And they have to come and check to see if they want it or not before we can even touch it. And the fourth point is that for all the resources we find on our land, every year we have to make a report, an exhaustive report at least, on the quality of the human resources on that land, and then send it to them.
Mr. President of the National Commission of the Confederation of Sahel States, Madam President of the Institute for the Development of the African Diaspora, Honorable Member of the Transitional Legislative Assembly, Your Excellency, it is the Ambassador of the Face to the United States. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, heads of diplomatic missions and consular posts, ladies and gentlemen, representatives of international and African organizations, ladies and gentlemen, it is with immense and profound honor, as well as a deep and rightful sense of pride, that I stand before you all this morning on this final and significant occasion at this truly historic and momentous meeting between our people and its beloved sons and daughters who have come, journeyed, and traveled from all corners, regions, and distant parts of the world, near and far. It is a gathering that brings together hearts, minds, and spirits, uniting us in a shared purpose and a common destiny. First of all, allow me, on behalf of His Excellency and the people of Burkina Faso, who are known for their resilience and vibrant culture, to welcome you to the land of your ancestors. Ladies and gentlemen, your journey to the beautiful and fascinating country of Burkina Faso is not just a simple trip, but rather an exciting and memorable adventure. It is a powerful act full of symbolism and emotion that transcends borders, centuries, and the wounds of history. Yes, you are finally returning to your beloved land, the beautiful and vast land of Africa, this ancient and cherished land that your ancestors, generations before you, were forced to leave behind in pain, violence, and conflict. Today, you stand here free, upright, and proud, bearing the eternal flame of dignity, hope, and remembrance, honoring the memory of those who came before you and celebrating the strength of your heritage. By welcoming you today, Burkina Faso humbly and proudly, warmly welcomes a part of itself that has long been scattered but never forgotten. As members of the great African family, you are partners in our destiny, brothers and sisters in the great work of our renewal, of the necessary African Renaissance in a world of constant migration. Yes, the world is changing, and it demands that people dare to make their own decisions. That Africa now takes responsibility for itself, and that its sons and daughters of the diaspora, including Afro-descendants, reclaim their history in order to lead, together with their brothers and sisters on the continent, the struggle for a sovereign and dignified Africa. As His Excellency, the Captain of the said, our land is fertile, and we will cultivate our future. This is the moment for me to express my wish for a pleasant future stay, and more or less, and it is a President of the Republic of South Africa who will certainly delight us throughout the day. Dear brothers and sisters of the diaspora, ladies and gentlemen, this conference with the members of the ADD must not be reduced to a mere symbolic act. It must be part of a historical dynamic, that of returning to our roots, of restoring the vital link between Africa and its diaspora, that of bringing together the sons and daughters of the same people, determined to pick up the thread of their shared history. Dear guests, Burkina Faso, true to its Pan-African calling, stands at the forefront of this reconquest. Our country has made a clear choice, and it is committed to it. that of national and popular solidarity, that of homegrown development driven by its own values and by the strength of its people. It is this Burkina Faso that welcomes you today, a country moving towards full solidarity and which, despite its progress, has chosen to remain true to itself and to Africa. Your presence here further strengthens this direction, which is neither conceived nor guided in any other way. Your presence simply confirms the deep thirst for freedom among African populations and, through your admiration, supports the righteousness of our common struggle. So thank you to all of you here for the many sacrifices you have made by making the journey to the King of Love. This enthusiasm, beyond its symbolic dimension, also carries a message of unity and faith in the future. This unity of Africa's sons and daughters, long betrayed as noted by the renowned historian Joseph Kizerbo, for whom the liberation of the continent is an inseparable struggle for its humanity, a struggle that must necessarily involve breaking away from the process linked to the naming of Black peoples. Africa does not only need to remember, it needs to act. And to act, it must mobilize all its strengths and skills. It is in this sense that the diaspora, with its experience, expertise, and resources, can serve as a tremendous lever for development and strategic influence. And in this approach, the African diaspora is, for us, an additional pillar. It has the advantage of sharing our roots, our values, and our vision of Africa. Brother have worked hand in hand with the ADBI and the entire African diaspora to give concrete substance to this vision. Well, I would like to sincerely congratulate all the distinguished leaders of the ADBI and all the stakeholders who worked to make this historic meeting possible. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely congratulate all the collaborators who worked, even hand in hand, to ensure that today's meeting could successfully take place. Long live the united and resilient African diaspora. Long live the free, independent, and sovereign life of our people. Long live Faso, the land of unwavering dignity and immense pride, the homeland or death. The homeland or death. The homeland or death forever and always. Thank you very much. So first, let's give him a round of applause.
By saying thank you and greeting the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Regional Cooperation, and all external affairs.
Before we continue, and as announced by His Excellency Karamoko Jamali Traore, we inform you that the former South African President, His Excellency Mr. Jacob Zuma, will be joining us during the course of the day. He has been in Ouagadougou for a few days now, and he will be joining us specifically for the next Bulan event. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now entering the heart of the conference.
And for this, we announce the first inaugural address and the extraordinary presence of Palatine Kaluste, as well as the dynamics of the AIS under the banner of solidarity with
From Okinawa, Niger, and Mali, let us welcome with a round of applause Mr.
Vincent Matassier, former Minister and President of the National Commission for Cooperation. I would like to sincerely thank our friends from the press for graciously allowing our leaders to mobilize their efforts and to truly hear the beautiful and inspiring voice, and also to see the considerable distance he covers. We experienced this during his important decision, which he made for me right after he was detained.
Because what we are saying, we know that the millions of wind turbines we wish for, those that are being prepared for us, they don't have our opinion. So they have come back for us. So I follow in the footsteps of the Minister regarding my material affairs. I move on to His Excellency, the Prime Minister, to welcome our dear brothers and sisters to their own home. The second point, Mr. the Minister, representing His Excellency, Mr. the Commissioner, allow me to express my deep gratitude for the national position of the Confederation of Sahel States and for all the choices made regarding our humble person. And for this introductory remark, there are eminent personalities at every level who are capable of developing 1,000 times, why not, more productive paths than we are. But you have kindly chosen us, and we all avoid these gondolazes towards each other.
We all try to carefully avoid these gondolazes as we move towards each other. Please excuse us. There may be some affections, possible interferences, or brief pauses along the way. So I took a bit more time because it said that in a dialogue setting, you have to allow your interlocutor to know who is speaking, and that the person speaking should also look directly at the face of the person they are addressing. I think that the introductory topic, which focuses on Pan-Africanism, the element of the Alliance of Sahel States, and the question of solidarity, let's just say it's a big subject, one that each of us could spend an entire day on. If we approach the subject from the perspective of Africanism, without getting into the details of Europe, and call upon distinguished historians from our country, as I said, the path is not an easy one. Likewise, if we talk about the Alliance of Sahel States in connection with Africa's historical solidarity, that too could take an entire day. If I may be very brief, I was helped, and I was helped is just an introductory remark. And this introductory remark will simply allow everyone to contribute, and why not, to enrich each other mutually. And to begin, let me say very frankly and directly, as we are here in this room, that my brothers and sisters who come from different backgrounds will have to forgive us. But in a meeting where we talk about Pan-Africanism, about solidarity, about hatred, it must be a meeting of truth, a meeting of sincerity, a meeting of warmth and brotherhood. And precisely speaking of Pan-Africanism, allow me to reduce it to a single theme. Because when we look back at history, you might defend yourself by saying that we have forgotten certain historical figures, or that we have set others aside. So I would like to say that the key understanding to take away is the struggle to reclaim our land. And among the struggles to reclaim our land, I can say that Pan-Africanism today, the understanding is that we must move forward in connection with Farafina. Farafina, which is nothing other than the African land. The land, they belong to the Black lands. And from this point of view, this struggle, if we were to start over on this topic, there has been the humility to bow our heads in memory of all the brothers and sisters who have been lost, even those who were not deported, but who, at a certain point in history, became aware of this issue so that Africa could regain its dignity, its honor, its integrity. There are thousands of them. I have often spoken about these thousands. There are also iconic figures to consider as we look at how we will protect them. There's precisely this struggle to reclaim our lands, for African land. And it's not land as a physical mass that we walk upon. We must understand that African land, ultimately reclaiming our African land, is about reclaiming our values. And this reclaiming of our fundamental values is truly the reclaiming. And what are the discourses that understand we will not stray and lose our way? As guides, we lead ourselves before the past, to the stone of the years cast into the future. And from this point of view, when I said we need to be direct and sincere, the question of Pan-Africanism, has it denied us Africans? Has the way history has unfolded up to today, have we been regarded as equals? With a capital H, have we always been considered as human beings, different from animals? No. The answer is no. It is no because throughout the course of history for millions of years, even while pretending not to know it, that Africa is the cradle of humanity, as they say, Africa has been plundered in every possible way. Whether it be its economic values, its human values, its cultural values, its historical values, its security values, Africa has been plundered. But often, in order to better commit themselves, I think those who had an interest in doing so gave themselves the means to make their own laws. And these laws, at a certain point, they brought together as a whole. They called it the Black Code in 1685. But when you open up this black coat, you can't bear to look inside. It is said that you and I, we are not human beings. We are sorcerers. We are things. Now, a thing is something you can manipulate as you wish. It's something you can dissect, something you can cut up. It's something you can sell, something you can pass on. That is not how we are regarded. But precisely in this definition, speaking of 1685, we can ask how we are today in a world without models. Has the content of the world changed? In practice, has what has been done since the year 1685 really changed? I have all these names, and I will give some examples. I will simply give some examples, because starting from 1685, instead of the pressure that was brought down on Africa, and knowing that the children of Africa were organizing themselves, that revolt was rising. In 1884, they allowed themselves to gather and say that the best way to continue to use us, to exploit us, was to break up our victories. Africa was once again subdivided, thus separated and isolated. Families were completely broken apart. From there, we also see that the Paris II revolt, whether it's slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, or colonization, the common denominator is the same. It's about how to dehumanize Africans, how to destroy Africans, how to vilify Africans, how to reduce Africans to the status of animals. So that means the substance, whether it's slavery, the slave trade, or colonization, the substance hasn't changed. It's also about putting in place the means to suppress revolt. We say it, we sing it in the Reman, we sing it in the Diban. We are in a neo-colonial era, which is defined by the question of independence. In this so-called independence, when you look at it, it's a way of telling you, don't complain, now you are your own master. You are your own master, and to show you that you shouldn't complain, yet you do complain, they invent taxes for us. Since the beginning of the conquest of the oceans, they go around African countries to distribute them. The first point, they arrive in a country, give us a date, then rest. On the second, the third, they go to another country, give us a date, rest on the fourth, the fifth, then move on to another country, give us a date, and so on. That's why we talk about independence, forest. Independence forest, because the content, we can't say the content is good. The content is serious, even extremely serious. The content is extremely serious because it consists of Polish chains, what we call the agreements. It's especially very much connected to African countries in particular. For me, you will say that a country is independent. And at the same time as you tell them they are independent, you give those you have chosen to lead them. In that world, you give them agreements, and the world must make them public. But beware, the issue is if they make any decision that does not align with all the agreements you have given them. That is to say, in a first agreement, we must acknowledge that colonization did us good. The fact that Africa was plundered, we must recognize that it supposedly benefited us, and we are even required to pay taxes for it. We have to pay those who came to beat us down, meaning our grandparents had to pay for that. So that's what they call it, colonial head tax. The second point is that, for example, if we take the case of France, which colonized Upper Volta, now Burkina Faso, if France faces difficulties, like the way it is provoking Russia and other countries, if war breaks out, it has the right to come and take young Burkinabés to go and defend it. That is part of the agreement. The third agreement is that, for example, if in the room where we are sitting, gold is found underground, or diamonds or oil, it's not for us, it's for them. And they have to come and check to see if they want it or not before we can even touch it. And the fourth point is that for all the resources we find on our land, every year we have to make a report, an exhaustive report at least, on the quality of the human resources on that land, and then send it to them. And the fifth point is that we are not allowed to pay, like other continents do. We do not have the possibility to pay our own lawyers to defend us elsewhere. Even the training of our soldiers and others, it is they who must do it. And the sixth point is that if at any point they feel threatened by us, the Burkinabe, if they feel we are fighting them, if they disagree, they have the ability to bring in their armies without our consent to come and intervene and position themselves however they want. That, in substance, is a form of formal independence. But now when we look at it, when they made all these agreements to put us in this situation, it's actually more about tightening their grip on Africa politically and tightening it economically as well. The grip is also cultural, but it is also present at the social level. I'll give another example. But at the same time as they give agreements, counter agreements, they say, the one we've appointed, it's he who appoints, not us. To make it seem like we are the ones who made the choice, they also create documents to send to us. And those documents, they call them the Constitution, instead of each country having its own constitution, meaning the law itself. And as for the content of the Constitution, they are the ones who wrote it. So what they do is they gather in their little groups, look at which factions suit them, and then they craft the content of the Constitution. And in the content of the Constitution, they say, well, there needs to be oversight, control, good governance, and we need to address the issue of elections. The president must be elected. And they show how they're going to organize things to hold these elections. And when we go to the polls, it gives the impression that we've elected a president, but it's not really our president. For now, it's us who have elected the president. We didn't send the president. He should travel to that country, take his nation, and go to the other side of the ocean. Before I take the case of France, the person concerned, the case of Macron, Nicolas Sarkozy, and others, the president must take his plane, go to the other side, and be received there. And when he is received, they will take him into their cultural chambers and so on, in quotation marks, so that they can place on his head those rings whose meaning even he does not know. They put dogs in the goal. He was born. He has never seen this before. They give him concoctions that he sees in the pot, but he doesn't know what they are. And all of that, they ask of him to swear, even if he has to ruin his entire audience. He must draw 1,000, he must draw 2,000, he must draw 3,000, he must commit to serving their interests. So it's only when he gets this validation that they give him a list. They say, well, how should we draw the right of the elected? He must be elected in our name. It's the list that must make up our government. The prime minister sees him and knows him. The minister of defense sees him and knows him. The foreign affairs sector, the name is known. Economy and finance, the name is known. Security, the name is known. And they say, well, depending on the sectors, depending on which country we're going to, depending on religions, depending on regions, you have to mix things up a bit to give the people the impression that they have political influence. In fact, last year they called at the airport and said, this is our president. We don't answer to him, but we tell him clearly in the context of elections, if you lose the elections, it's us who will come with our army, as long as they do what we want to keep him in power. Handle him. The main thing is that everything they do must be what we do ourselves. Say it. And say it, we can monitor everything they do. Why monitor and call out even act? They say, the day I gather my government to work there. It's not up to me to choose the day. We are the ones who choose the day, and they choose the day, they give it. On that day, the government must be sent to them. They must analyze all the points. The points they don't let be arranged, they say, fine, set those aside. The points they're ready to analyze, and when you're done, you make them the points for which decisions need to be made. If you have authorization to implement, you implement. And they send in new individuals, new figures, so that they can always hold elections, destroying the cultural foundation in every village. So that everyone seems dependent on what we call traditional chiefs, with the aim of changing that in a political period, in a democratic period, and they reassure the political representatives who are the president by saying that it's not a question of 2 terms, 3 terms. The Constitution, it's us who are going to make it. We're the ones who know what's in it. And that means it's for us, not for them. So 2 terms, 3 terms, it's us who decide. If you want, do 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms. The term you must never violate is the full respect of our interests. That's why we say sorry, yes, over there. So from that point of view, that's what a constitution contains. In that sense, can we say that politically we have a law capable of shaping the nation, giving political direction? Shaping? No. On the economic front, they say, in accordance with the agreements, nothing belongs to us. And to be absolutely sure that nothing belongs to us, even though they held the UQ 184 conference as soon as it's established in the countries. There is agreement, there is cohesion. They need to subdivide things even further because they have mapped out the subsoil. They know exactly what is in the subsoil across the different countries. I'll give you an example. When they arrived in our region in the Sahara, they cut off a part of Mali. They cut off a part of Burkina. They came all the way to Kaya. They cut off a part of Mauritania, a part of Senegal. If you search on your phones, January 1957, you'll see that they created what was called the Common Organization of Saharan Regions. That means it's an organization which, as it evolved, reached a new country that transcends the others, whose subsoil is the Pachimari. Pachimari, because in history, in geological analyses, it is indicated that there is not just one aquifer layer in the ground, which has the same capacity as the aquifer layer that crosses the Sahara all the way to Dijik. So that's why they want to settle there. And at the same time, they gave us documents about the subsoil, saying that the contents of the subsoil contain nothing. There are connections, these are poor countries, and so on. And the real documents, they have them. When it's time to come and exploit, and we say the subsoil contains nothing, they come, they ask for a boundary somewhere. There you go. They do an excavation for a week, 2 weeks, and then they say they found gold. Yes, they found this, they found that. Just so you know, they had no trace of gold. They had no trace of diamonds. They had no trace of oil. You said there was no sustainability, but we told the people of Kutina Bay that we are in a revolutionary movement. Stay united in solidarity with all the groups around the world, and you will see in 20 years, 30 years, all these deceitful documents they left us here. We will refute them. We're going to refute them because they said there was no gold. We would have over 10,000 industrial gold plantations. They said there was no diamond. Now the diamond, when you look at the geological formation in Ivory Coast, there is a locality called Tortia. Practically first, the diamond dries up, open. And the indicator that allows, the rock indicator that allows us to say that there are traces of diamonds here is the presence of perlite. Just as there is in South Africa, there is in Portia, and there is in the Bansora area. Why would there be these indicators? And for a long time, he says there are no diamonds. They returned to Corsica to request permits and prospect for diamonds. We said we won't support it because it's real. We'll also keep an eye on them. It's not possible. The time of the indicator has been designated. If the hospital doesn't have any oil, but last year we received a message from a young man who said that in their village there was rain. At a depth of 3 or 4 meters, the water there smells like oil. He can't use it, even when they say there's no oil. That means that Burkina Faso, just like Mali and Niger, has oil. It's just that they want to cover it up. As for uranium cups, there is that too. So we are sitting on the resources of the Sahel states. I would call it a geological scandal. But precisely those who come to plunder us so that they can benefit economically, we are told that it is insignificant. And in the name of universal solidarity, we are expected to do the right thing. On the security front, to plunder us, we even said that we don't need soldiers, we don't need gendarmes, we don't need police officers, we don't need GST, we don't need leisure activities. All these positions need to be bribed with private companies. In that case, you look at the structural adjustment program in 1990 to 92. They blocked all the regulations. For there to be any security personnel, you have to bribe them through private companies. But in fact, they know the number of jackals, they know the number of police officers, they know the number of soldiers. They always know if they have to attack, how many days they give themselves because they don't have a base on the island. And in the agreement, the points of agreement, it's very obvious you can't bring in weapons. What exactly does that mean? What types of weapons do you have as well? And then when our soldiers, our officers, people who are very well trained, very well educated, they spend too much time analyzing a national concern. Security isn't working. They need to consult with each other to see what needs to be done. To attend a meeting, you consult in the name of the nation, you look behind you, and it's people who are just eavesdropping. And then when you finish the meeting, well, you decide to pay $2 or $3 and they tell you, no, you're not the one buying. Wait until we call either Sarkozy or Macron. And then, well, we'll let you know. And you do this for 1 or 2 years. You go into the context of the First and Second World Wars. They take away candies that no longer create anything. That's what they want to give you just to greet you. And you want them to take that away from you? That's why When the captain arrived, when the president arrived, the very first thing he said was that you are more active than you think you are. You call yourselves military partners and others. Let's take a look at the lines. This is not a policy that will be copied. You are going to fight. If you are in the military, you will never get along because the filming will be one of two outcomes. Now, if there is a partner who comes, if we want them to join us, it is we who choose them. It's not them who come just because they want to attend the meeting. No, but just when you choose the partners, we need to take a look. Specifically at the level of embassies and those who want the union to be established, who is supposed to do what? So when we set the bar at excellence, I say we are going to energize ourselves. So from the moment we choose like that, the country that thinks everything you do is not good because you want to take care of your people and they want to come and plunder you to develop themselves. But what's not acceptable is that no one forced you to stay. There haven't been any outcries across the continent. It's free. You don't say it. We have clearly chosen our partners to get what they need. And I'm sure you don't know it, but it's true. It's not about being clever with someone. It's not about denying someone. It's not about rejecting someone. You can't come and tell us that you love me more than I love myself. That's not true. You can't come and trash my grandfather. Let's say, trash my grandfather, trash my father, and then you come and say, no, well, really? You today, yes, it's true that I hurt your grandfather, your ancestors, but we can get along. If I'm smart, I should drink alcohol. That's an idea. I should have fun because it's coming. Because he's in a period where he's unaware, he can't act. That when put to the test, you have to act properly. Well, then for me, it's a beast. It's not my thing. With the structural adjustment programs, we end up with destruction. So for me, people say, well, you implemented the structural adjustment programs. You see that the country isn't getting out of it. We're in the process of changing. Despite everything, I say, when you're alive, I say, wait, when you make it, you leave for your country. There are things you no longer want to pay for. When you say you're in the country, for a very healthy burial, there is a burial. We'll do it like this. When I say you take the limbs and keep them, okay, then we say do the heads there. We're going to take it. They're going to be the faces. I'm going to be the face here. We're going to postpone. When they see that social tension is rising, we want to postpone. They come back quickly and change their name. They say, no, wait, you're not disappointed. We have a program. Here it is, an accelerated development program. That's what we have in place now for everyone, accelerated. So don't worry. So you see, we're just changing terms from one to another. And by changing terms, they fooled us so many times. But through their education, they've messed with our minds so much that when we hear these terms, we also find specialists, our Black brothers and sisters, who come on TV to prove that it's good for their opportunity. And when we come to prove a year later that it amounts to nothing, we just change the word again. And then once again, we start going in all directions. And it's through this, little by little, that they manage to control us. And I'll give some examples when we talk about this. They got us because, take the issue of human rights. Are you comfortable with this situation? They came. Who can help us? We're not even all included in the Black Code of 1645. We're not considered human beings. It's as if I shouldn't even talk to you about human rights. Yet, the first human rights charter in the world that explained how to care for a child, how to manage the environment, that is the forest, how to organize property, was the Charter of Consulate from 1312. They ignore me here, but to assert themselves, they rushed on August 26, 1799 to proclaim, well now, today, this is the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Man and of Peoples. And today, since December 10th, 1948, they have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And we ourselves forget that we are doing what our ancestors have already done. For 10 years since that time, people have been building 1,256 statutes, 1,256. If people are building even more statutes, it means society is structured. But why today? We give the impression that we are nothing. You take this charter from 1,256, you look inside wherever it may be. Article 9, Article 10, Article 11. It even says that a child is a communal asset. It's an individual asset. It even says in the charter that the issue of marriage concerns married men, because at some point things don't work out. And since society is wise, it says that things aren't working and we have to separate. We don't understand a marriage separation happening right in the middle of the city or in the middle of the village. That's not how it's done. We used to do it on the outskirts at the edge of the village because we consider it a painful separation. And then we are at peace. We ourselves can't be sitting with trouble right in the middle of the city. We're at peace. So the third level is the circular level. It's as if all those to whom we compare ourselves, they've come and committed themselves. They make sure that we should even feel ashamed. They won't cling on. Progress is them. Development is them. But what progress, what development are you talking about? Before you came to talk about colonization, our parents, our friends were producing gold. They were already producing iron. They were making weapons. And you, who are a descendant of those born in Africa, you will believe that gold. In the root, it's like a child who went to school and wants to come back to his father, who brought him into the world. He wants him to get involved. Because he wants to destroy him, he says the father is nothing. There is no greater curse than that. That's why we say that all those who attack Africa, you have no future. Africa will move forward. Because you can't come and attack an ancestor, a grandmother. It's not possible. The doctor administrator, he racked his brains to understand that parapitalism is paratina. And it's African land, and as we must defend it, it's not just land as soil, it's land as human value, as economic value, as political value, as cultural value, as secular value. That's what human rights are. But precisely, ever since they came to grant independence, how many young people have died whose bodies the sea brings back in all the countries of the Nikos? At sea, there are groups of young black people whom others bring back dead, like bags. And you want us to close our eyes. We cannot close our eyes. That's why Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, at a certain point, like an ancestral fire that suddenly flared up, experienced changes in all three countries. And the three societies quickly came together, first on September 16, 2023. For their part, they said that we need to move forward, that we need to follow the same path. We analyzed the charter of the helicopter and implemented it through the alliance of Sahel states. The helicopter, in every sense of the word, is indomitable. So we established the alliance of Sahel states. And as they progressed on July 6, 2024 in Niamey, Niger, they met and established the Confederation of Sahel states by signing a treaty, drafting the internal regulations, and issuing a communiqué. And it is precisely in these internal regulations adopted during the 2 summer months that it is stated that when the three heads of state meet there, they have the right to form the College of Heads of State. Below the College of Heads of State, we have the confederal government. And below the confederal government, we have the parliamentary bodies. Now, each country must establish a national commission for the Confederation of Sahel states and appoint a president. And then 3 vice presidents. Why a president and 3 vice presidents? Because precisely the 3 heads of state have taken the lead in shaping history. Because if you look it up online, you'll see that in 1959, the Federation of the World of Peoples, which included Upper Volta, Benin, and Senegal, was created because at that time, it's not that they didn't work on it, but they went immediately and directly towards a federation. When talking about moving towards a federation, you have to be very sure that you have established institutional foundations economically, culturally, secularly, and politically before you can talk about a federation. If you're not ready yet, we went straight to a federation. You have to start with a confederation. By starting with a confederation, that means each country still retains its sovereignty, but you have to choose key countries. If you look it up on your phone, you'll see that in 1954, the World Federation, which included Haute Route, Benin, and Senegal, was created. This happened not because they hadn't worked, but because they immediately and directly moved toward forming a federation. So in a federation, you have to be very sure that you have established institutional foundations, economically, culturally, and in terms of secular matters. On the political level, you have to talk about federations. If you're not ready yet to go directly toward a federation, you should start with a confederation. By starting with a confederation, that is, each country still retains its sovereignty, but you have to choose key countries which, when united, you must first work on, strengthen, and consolidate in order to move forward. And what is that? The first priority is defense and security. Secondly, it's diplomacy. Thirdly, it's development. And when they do all these things, when they hold all these meetings, you'll see people saying, no, they're talking about the AES and all that. Is it really moving forward? Where are they at? It's just theater. But as I said, the heads of state met in January 2025, and studies are underway where they made their decisions. The biggest project, first of all, the largest federal project, is to connect the three capitals, the three countries of the AES. And the second major project is a railway project.
Secondly, I inform you that the three heads of state have implemented the AES area passport.
They have decided to establish AES communication bodies, print media, radio, and television. And since they are providing the means, they have created the Confederated Bank of the Sahel states. They have just decided to implement the biometric card for the AES area. And indeed, we cannot talk about Pan-Africanism, we cannot talk about African land and continue to create barriers that prevent our African brothers from coming. No, the head of state has issued a directive, especially in the case of Burkina in the AES, saying that all African brothers, wherever you are, if you want to come home, in Burkina, there is no reason to require a visa. So that is true citizenship. Thank you all. So we ask ourselves, in light of all this, is it over? Should we pay attention? Attention. Words have been spoken, but why is there still more to be done? And in this good word, which remains to be accomplished, we must open up. And the fact that you find yourself today in Burkina, in this African fraternal unity, shows that it is already open. Why did I say there is a good word to be done? There is a good word to be done because you see it written everywhere. The currency that General Desbourg created for the French colonies in 1945, they even mentioned it in the agreements, the 11 agreements. It was an agreement. We could not use any currency other than the French one. But precisely when the heads of state are thinking about how to create a currency, they are in a hurry. They shout from every rooftop, where are you? You created a currency. Where do we stand? Why isn't it coming out? In 1958. When it's your turn, you can demand it here and now. Guinea's independence, General de Gaulle said, you take independence here and now. By holding on to the entire Guinean colonial administration. And I pay tribute to all the teachers, including the leaders who are still in the city today, who made the bold decision for Guinea and taught African children in Guinea with such dedication.
So it was true.
From the present, we see it in this way. When the first Union plan was described, when they had the model, they knew how it was done. Even before Sékou Touré enforced the Union plan, the plan was already being advocated by Chauvier. Why kill the kids? But we have this, the leaders don't talk about this experience. They know how we suffered back then. Someone suffered back then for you. It's very important to look at the other side that stumbled, and fell. Because if you stay up there, you fail to look, and in the same way, you stumble again to look at the other side. So when they're in a hurry to say, well, you have everything, it's our happiness, it's us who said we want to change happiness, but you're in a rush. For what? You don't know your own way, that's it, so it's fine. You take your path and you tell him go, you leave here. Thank you, everyone. That we have your currency and then we function properly. But actually, the question that keeps coming up isn't even about having a currency. That's not what's bothering anyone. What bothers them is that before, when you paid salaries, it had to be in CFA, that France had control, that they had the ability to create projects to prevent you from paying for this plane, that garage, that tank. Now, because now we're no longer going to advise you to keep doing your CFA thing. That's true. We're also going to change the enthusiasts. That's true. Now, we're going to be put in front of a country's celebration. And every week, dozens or even hundreds of tanks are coming into the continent. Thousands of garages are coming into the continent. Whether it's peaceful or not, that's not your problem. Aid or something else, that's not your problem. That's what hurt. I mean, we buy with aid. We're going to track down the Tarasque. We're going to the first place, the starting point. But since we changed the partnership, we have the possibility to evaluate in the companies where we manufacture. And then what surprises us is that we're going to track down the Tarasque. We're also going to a site. There are windows to buy. Come on, let's go, because it can't go on like this. We're not going to do it. For my part, I'll reply, that's how it is. Some are in a hurry, others are slow. That's it. In my father's name, I say it. General Tiani said the technicians are working. When the time comes, they'll speak and come out for unity. That's the first point, to show that the battle is going to get heated. The second point, which shows that we won't be waking up, is the food issue. You know very well that food is the first thing. Thank you. What do we eat? You'll find products that should even be consumed by animals. We transport them. We bring them into our countries. You take small bowls of rice, you put them in your big bags, you add the eggs, it gets sold, it goes into the bag. There's no rice. You'll see a significant part in this consumption, and you don't even know the sources. You'll find children who are 12, 13, 15 years old. They say they're suffering from spots, but when a child arrives, he's married, he's dead. I didn't get sick in France. I didn't get sick in France. There's a little bit of noise. So there's a disease that we don't know about. So it was said the heads of state decreed the issue of food self-sufficiency. And with food self-sufficiency, we want to make progress. You see, when you take the right path, the path of truth, brotherhood, and transparency, even the ancestors who are in the chariot, they agree with you. Why? Because you can go pay for motorcycles, for delivery services, and then he can't see it. But since then, the head of state has declared that everyone must play their part in upholding tradition in our country. But that's not necessary. He can. This comes from the head of state. Traditional chiefs don't have a budget, so why would traditional chiefs leave Canadians in the country? So it can come from our own funds, from our culture. It's moving forward. So when it comes to issues like transportation allowances, private food bags, etc., we will look at it carefully. But still, we must appeal to the patriotism of the African Ocean. Why are we appealing to autistic hepatitis? Let's say we arrived at the port of Ghana. There were products that were supposed to come in, but Ghana refused them because even animals shouldn't consume them. But if you, for example, are Haitian and you go and pay because you want money, you go and buy new bags to store. In other words, in golden sachets, the same products that were rejected, to come and sell them to your brothers. You are no better than a slave trader. So that's why, in order to lead such a struggle and move forward, you need to have a spirit of truth, transparency, and unity. So we have a revolutionary unity. Honestly, blood, that's not possible. The third element, after food and the issue of blood, is the medical question. Who can say that pills like Mata truly are meant to heal us? And that's what they're producing. I congratulate Customs who just put on a show in a certain locality. We have production plans. In 5 years, we use this name at the speed of progress. Synthesis is not meant to make us die en masse in 10 or 15 years. And besides, we're not robots being issued straight from numbers. In the midst of COVID-19, you bring in medicines, you put names on them. The name, we don't even know. It's just a big fact of life. You bring in a vaccine that's now called 2020, 20 days later, and I come to get vaccinated, you say, because I don't get vaccinated, I can't travel. And you give it to me, and you even tell my people, you say, well, if you take the pass from one child to another, well, you have to wait a week, 2 weeks, it'll be fine at the door. I said, it's not a big deal. When he says it, you didn't do it. That's it, you said it. He was the opposite. You move me from one child to another. I leave the house for him to call me to fasting on 2 feet. Well, in the case of the reunion, it had to go to court. We don't have the right to a president who is useless to us. And people are affected on the other side. They assure me they fabricate evidence. We just got together to go file them at The Hague at the International Federal Court. Why are the United States leaving from there? The other Europeans, the one in Israel, who is massacring, people talk. So why aren't they being arrested? Are there any greater criminals than them? So from this point of view, we are not going to accept or continue to submit to intentions of counter-speech. We are alive. We are alive. We are going to welcome the Federal Judicial Court. That's what we are going to do. And now, the other thing, the record you need to play is the dispute over the education mandate. Went to the United States in 1492. Our grandfather, Boubacar Mansa II, went to the United States in 1312. So that means that history of Rome was there 180 years after him, even much later than that. And I saw in some educational materials, documents are fabricated, and that's what was said at the UN. Why don't they want Africa to try to go and liberate the world? I said at the UN, they said, no, no, no. When we said that those who are the 21 didn't sleep, France rushed to go and take a seat. When you couldn't say anything, you couldn't occupy anything. Africa had to liberate you. They tell the 21 to sleep when you have no seat, contrary to Africa. And now that they've made us indicate that we have to be at 120, they even create such generalizations. It's the battlefield. He wasn't even shooting properly. He was shooting on time. So as a result, they are shooters. Me, my grandfather was never shot on time. He didn't shoot on time. If he had shot on time, my grandmother would have raised him. But how many years have we had this and that? We don't dare. Veterans shoot on time. Veterans shoot on time. When they're done, me, my grandfather, he was never a fighter. He was never a fighter. He was never a fighter. So that's a matter of upbringing. Third stage of education, we're not going to keep paying for armored vehicles, keep paying for bribes, keep paying for... No, the state needs to get organized. If we need to provide flies, we need vehicles, right? We look at our partnerships. Which country makes the best vehicles? We take 100, 100, 200, we send them, we track them. As soon as they use them, they keep them. We set up a lab, we're not going to say where. We set up a lab and then they're inside. In any case, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to have new old tours that suit us. So, Parliament rises with the first batch. Since Ukraine has been used as a tool, the United States has sold warplanes elsewhere. As requested by the students, all the warplanes that have been sold must, in 4 or 5 months, be recycled every 6 months. Every 6 months. So those same planes, it's this roaming digital system that can at any moment decide that your plane won't start. And we're just going to accept that. That's why they want us to pay for the equipment. We're not going to pay them over there. We're also going to look at how we need to manufacture things so that even if we produce sports content, it's not good like that. We'll keep going because there are defenders. There you go. And it seems we have some partners too. But when we show up with a partner, if we show up with a partner and the partner isn't right either, we can say goodbye. It's not going to work for us. That's because if you're here, you can't do what we told you earlier. Because, and we can end on this note, even the deployment institutions, if you give money, you don't have a department. You don't even have the right to commit countries. Even education has been wrecked. And when there are people who love money, they put the money in cash boxes, take it out, and want children there. There's no point in helping them progress. You have to systematically pass them through. Because starting from secondary school, you can start to have something else. When there are already 15 or 16 children in a class, you start saying there are too many. Where we are, there are 200 or 300 like that. The teacher doesn't even have the possibility to walk between the rows to check and supervise the children. Yet a good education should start with the fact that as a teacher, I know the children by name. And even more, I know their parents. So that in case of any difficulty, I can call them. Don't we have the means to see that above the schools and closer by, we really don't have the means? Unfortunately, it reaches 20 billion. They say it's a trait. The country is condemned to 20 billion, not just as a leader. Within those 20 billion, there are 4 billion. It's not with them over there. It's the same 4 billion, but they are trained over there at their place. Even if it's been 8 years, they see. So, it's good if they don't see. So what has been returned? As a minister of state, I have some chances to govern in Quebec in order to bring in 4 billion euros. So we let it go. So when he starts to realize he can't seize it, then we'll inject him, he'll die. Basically, we need to make clothes for little beings. Here you go. Well, that's one part done. And he diverts it like that. Why? If you agree, if you're a good partner, if you want to help me, what's stopping me? The one who diverted it from bringing it to you and then taking it back and setting my own price? That's what good partnership is about too. You say you're my partner, you come to my place, it's me who's at home. You ask me the question, I say yes. You say I had to bring you here. You say you gave me the loan, I say fine, take the loan, but we're not staying here, we're leaving for the slippers. So do you want to pay me? Me, I take my money, I want to go share it with others. You say no, you have to go. That's why we say we're not going to drive away a financial partner. If you bring your money, since it's your money, you don't have to come. That's where we're going. If you give your money, we leave here. If you give your shoe, we leave here. If you prepare us, we come back. You don't have to come. Well, if there are people who want to come, they'll come. There are people who want to come. Anyway, even if they're not here, it has nothing to do with that. If you send your loans, these are our development projects. That's where we're going to go. Let's go. And the last point is to ask you, haven't we seen over time, that's where we talk about solidarity. Should solidarity be used more? People have fought, and everything that has been done to greet one another is to say that there will be more African leaders who will get involved. Let me give an example. The mandate in Congo. You'll see, I have no comment. Just look at what they did to me. Now we were discovering the analysis and the governments of Africa. And years later, we bring it back up. There you go. That's what she told me. These are the kinds of human rights defenders we're talking about. Second point, we're in Cameroon. They beheaded people from a neighborhood, forcing publications to get there. You see your ideal. You see his head. Attention. Third point, Madagascar, that doesn't get you very far, where they resisted major failures. They didn't bring in the researchers. Last point next to it, Thomas Sangala. How can people who have laboratories, who can determine the nature of a skeleton in the ground? It's the Muslim woman. That is to say, she didn't even make it to 30 years old. They'll even tell you she couldn't go to war. So it's a way of saying she really held herself back. It's the same as in the month of 1685. We are not human beings. And that's to say that if we didn't do it for Sankara, we won't do it for anyone who commits to defending Africa either. It's a way of warning you. But what do they mean when they say they're warning you? It's not just empty words. General Lepointre has already said it. Life on air. The French General Lepointre. What are they preparing for? What are they planning with the European years in 10 years, less than 10 years, the colonialists in Israel? In any case, dear brothers, we are waiting for them. We are waiting for them. We are waiting for them because when the head of state takes up arms again, if it's the terrorists you're sending to try to assert sovereignty, that you're sending to use, to beg, to arm, to spread desolation through the weight of those for whom we are now preparing ourselves, little by little. And the problem isn't just preparing to fight against the armed substitute. No, we must organize ourselves properly, have a healthy youth, a united youth, strengthen African unity so that the continent, the humanity of a single body, why not, could move a bit towards a true North Korea. There you go. You see, there aren't many details. But when he speaks, he goes around in circles like that, and the world remains calm. So, the African minds that belong to us, come help us so that we can move forward. So, I said that in terms of solidarity. If the minister allows me, I need to give specific examples to show that we have a direct interest in protecting our heads of state. We have an interest in protecting them because if we mess around, it's violent, it's not good. It's not good. That's what it's called. And I was saying earlier that when you look at cases over time, take the case of Sankara on April 21st, 1986. It was by thinking about all this that he established, there you have it, the Institute of Black Peoples in France. The Institute of Black Peoples was set up. President Captain Ibrahim Traoré has just brought this up because it wasn't working on May 21st. He said to establish the Institute of Black Peoples in France. So the Institute of Black Peoples, he reorganized the Institute of Black Peoples Faratina. That says it all. The Institute of Black Peoples Farakana, that's one example. Second example, Sankara was among those who gave Nelson Mandela a diplomatic passport during apartheid. Is there any greater support than that? He said courageously on the 3rd anniversary of the revolution that apartheid was a cancer and that it must absolutely be fought. That's why we can say it. So whether it's General Danwe Gomita, General Danwe Chani, or Comrade Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in the name of all Africans, our honor, our integrity, our dignity, it's as if they have climbed onto a generational fragmentation explosive device. What does that mean? It means that when they put themselves out there, even if we're not around, even our children who aren't born yet will pay the price for daring to think about sovereignty. And from that point of view, when they speak, when these heads of state come out and give their speeches, we shouldn't just limit ourselves to applauding. Applauding is great, but take the speech afterwards. Go sit down by yourself.
Listen to the speech word for word, because in the middle of the hour, there are little slips. There are things he declares. If you're not very vigilant, it can slip by. Sankara, before he left, gave the same speech. That is, he said it, and we applauded, didn't we? He says he's your explicit one. You don't want to know me? To the left, there are cliffs. To the right, there are cliffs. If he stops, the pedal will fall, but he has to keep going. We manage to allow ourselves to get involved. For example, your relative received something from someone else. A week before he died, he said to someone, "Today, I only trust one person." He said that because he raised his dog, who is affected. Why? Simply because at night, when he watches over his family, the dog comes and touches everyone. Will there no longer be a way for him to say, "Come, I'm in danger"? So from that point of view, we need to allow ourselves to join forces, to be present here for the future. The goal for the future, as I said, is that we don't move as soon as the struggle is protected. It's not that the imperialists don't want to come in the middle of a war to latch on to someone. It's not that they don't want to come in the middle of a war to latch on. It's not that they don't want to come in the middle of a war to latch on. It's not that they're going to latch on and then get away with it. It's this equation that's about to come into play. But this equation is made up of your vigilance, your solidarity, your unity. It made for a very complex situation, sensitive to the day's developments. I'm done. You're welcome.